The year's 1994, and Green Day just got into rock and roll's biggest mud fight. It was the year when Ace of Base saw the sign. Forrest Gump dominated at the box office, and the Arsenio Hall Show was cancelled for the first time. But we're not here to talk about the things that make you go, because today we're counting down Electronic Gaming Monthly's worst reviewed games of 1994. Whoop, whoop, whoop! I'm a bit of a defender of the Jaguar, but even I have to admit that Atari stumbled right out of the gate. Perhaps one of the worst decisions was to launch with Trevor McFur in Crescent Valley, a shiny 2D side-scrolling shoot-'em-up starring a Jaguar named Trevor and Cutter the Lynx. Get it? It's a Jaguar and a Lynx, just like the Atari consoles. That's probably how clever works. Anyway, this game sucks, and EGM couldn't be bothered to give it the full review treatment. For one of the first games for the new Atari Jaguar system, Trevor is very disappointing. The graphics are nice, but the game's not very challenging. Not to mention the control cramps your hand. Surely they can do better. Trevor picked up mostly 4s, with Ed Simrad giving it a 5 and Mike Wigan going as low as a 3. For a launch game, Trevor barely got a mention, and with an average of 4 out of 10, it's easy to see why. Hey, remember how Trevor McFur was a Jaguar and his partner Cutter was a Lynx? Well, in case you didn't see why that was so uproariously funny, then I'm here to spell it out for you by following up that Jaguar review with a Lynx review of Super Offroad. And no, I didn't plan it that way, it's just a lucky coincidence. There isn't a whole lot to say about Super Offroad, starts Al Manuel. The only thing that comes to mind is how badly it suffers from poor gameplay. This was an opinion echoed throughout the review crew, with the rest of the staff calling it disappointing and giving it 4s. While the game has decent graphics and most of the features from the arcade, the game plays so poorly and the movement of the trucks is incredibly choppy. With an average of 3.75 out of 10, Super Offroad proves that not every game belongs on the Lynx. Long before Nathan Drake, Crash Bandicoot, or even Jak and Daxter, Naughty Dog was busy developing the 3DO's most memorable fighting game, Way of the Warrior. Unfortunately, it was remembered for all the wrong reasons. The digitized characters looked great and nobody could deny the rockin' soundtrack, but as Daniel Carpenter notes, this game isn't even good by accident. The truth is, you know something's wrong when fake ninja fighting game expert Sushi X starts his review by saying, hello? He argued that the fighters' moves are very difficult to pull off, and that some characters have a very unfair advantage over others. This opinion was shared by Al, who praised the presentations before concluding that it looks like too much time was spent on the pretty graphics, rather than a fighting game that was at least playable. I think there might be a reason why Naughty Dog never returned to the fighting genre. Way of the Warrior averages a horrible 3.75 out of 10. Now this is something you don't see every day. EGM's second worst reviewed game of 1994 didn't actually come out in 1994. Hell, it didn't even come out in 1995. As crazy as it sounds, Time Killers was actually cancelled by THQ not long before this review hit newsstands, and then was later picked up for a 1996 release by Black Pearl. Judging by these reviews, perhaps it should have remained dead. Come on! I didn't even like the arcade game to begin with, and to make things worse, it's now on a home system. Why? Well, Al, there's a simple answer to that question. Controversy sells. After they saw what happened to Night Trap and Mortal Kombat, THQ was blinded by the prospect of earning lots of money. Daniel sums it up as what could have been a decent arcade translation, even though the arcade version was bad to begin with, was unfortunately mangled in this home translation. Both critics gave it a 3 out of 10. Just about the only thing keeping Time Killers from being the worst reviewed game of the year is a surprisingly solid score from Ed. Giving it a 5 out of 10, he complained that this card has absolutely no control. The special 3-button attacks take out most of the fun, and it doesn't look much better than an 8-bitter. He even ends his review by saying that he wouldn't recommend it to anybody. Ed's score managed to raise the average to a 3.5 out of 10. Cliffhanger is the reason a lot of critics were initially dubious about the PlayStation. I mean, it wasn't just Cliffhanger, but rather Sony's entire lineup of games leading up to the 1995 launch. This is the company that published Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, Three Ninjas Kick Back, and The Last Action Hero, so it's easy to understand the concern. Cliffhanger on the Nintendo Entertainment System was the worst of the bunch, leading Sushi X to wonder, what is going on with this game? I know it's NES, but even for 8-bit, this thing is far behind its time and capabilities. Ed backed him up, noting that Cliffhanger is a feeble attempt with the license, and the graphics are very poor, even when compared to other 8-bit games. I think it's Al who ends up putting it best. The only redeeming quality for this game is that you can turn it off. Just about the only positive I could find is that one of the editors kinda sorta likes the movie. Cliffhanger was a decent film, explains Danyan. So if you're looking for a decent film, then perhaps give Cliffhanger a shot. Or don't. He doesn't really seem all that invested in it. Cliffhanger is not a game worth grabbing onto. Hey, thanks for watching this episode of EGM's Best and Worst. So, here's the question I have for you. What's your least favorite game of 1994? And remember, it doesn't have to be one of the games we talked about here, because this was the year that also brought us Shaq Fu and Rebel Assault on the Sega CD. I'll be curious to read your picks in the comments below. In other news, we're just a few days away from the premiere episode of Game Over, the early years. Look for new episodes to start back up on February 5th and run every Monday. I recommend you click that subscribe button and maybe even give us a like. Until then.